Let me get a mic check, Fred.
Check, 1, 2.
Awesome. Yes.
We're in the
I got
system.
in the house. Finally.
What's up, man? What's up?
Dude, thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming.
I'm glad to be here, man.
Out
Glad
of all the people that I've had on here, I've had some great conversations, man. But I was super excited to have you on here because you are such an underrated artist, in my opinion. You work so hard, and I've seen it, and I've had so many conversations with you about owning a business, entrepreneurship, musicianship, artistry. I mean, you name it, we've talked about it all, and I really do feel like you have a lot of knowledge and experience to share. But go ahead and tell everybody who you are, what you do, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I'm Fred Lee IV. I'm with the band Late Night Special, and I also own and produce a music festival called the Shakedown Music Festival, and just really love music. I built my life around it, and it's basically, I don't know, this is the story of the art of living the dream.
Yes,
you know,
sir.
Let's get out there and get after it.
Yes,
That's
sir.
what I do.
What kind of just for those that aren't familiar with your music, what best describes your type of music?
It's kind of just the feel-good, good vibes music, man. It's just like puts you in a good mood. It seems to be like, I don't know, something everybody can kind of just get along with, you know.
I have a few of the songs saved on my playlist.
Yeah.
I actually sent some songs to, I was working with a new model, and she was playing some Tame Impala, and I'm like, oh man, you should check out this song and this song and this song. And then I sent her Hold On, and she was like, ooh, and she sent me a message. She's like, add it to my playlist.
Nice.
Nice. Yeah, you have great music. I listened, when I grew up, I don't know if you remember me telling you, I listened to a lot of like Goo Goo Dolls, Oasis, Foo Fighters was one of my favorite bands. Until this day, I still listen to a lot of rock music, all different genres. So when I heard your music, I was taken back. I was taken back because it's so well done. It's so well done, and I think you were one of my first clients and friends that I was introduced to into the music world. You being because you're a full-time musician.
Yes, yeah, this is what I do full time, man, day in, day out.
What's that like?
It's quite an experience, you know. It's something that you know, like anything, when you start out doing it, you have, you know, your trials and tribulations you have to like kind of work through, and it's a lot of work, but it's also a huge reward for all the work that you get to put in. So it's very enjoyable, in my opinion, because I've just always been one that kind of grew up on the morals of if you're not going to put the work in, then you're never going to get anything out of, you know, what you do. So, and I've experienced in different things in life, whatever amount of energy you put into your project or your job or even in any day-to-day life. I mean, if you choose to brush your teeth for 15 seconds rather than 2 minutes, you're probably not going to have clean teeth, you know? So it's like put in the extra time in everything you do, and it's going to pay off. So that's kind of what it's like being a musician, man. You know, it's easy to get caught up, I guess, in your ego, and like the more great things you do and the more busy you get, you almost feel like, well, you know, when do I get to stop working so hard? You know, when do I just get to get the next, you know, great opportunity without having to really work for it? And that doesn't really happen in music. So it's just always something that you're consistently working at, you know.
I feel like in our day and age with entrepreneurship like on the rise, in the art industry, I definitely feel like, you know, musicians, painters, and sculptors, I think they have it the hardest, because as far as, you know, with photography and videography, it's really easy to promote that kind of work, because I make my own marketing content. But for you guys, you know, you have to worry about the music apps, you know, how well are they doing? You have to promote that. You got to get the visuals, so then you guys have to hire a photographer and videographer just to get like marketing content on social media. And then in the studio alone, I was at my first recording, and I got to see how it's done, and it's just I mean, you're in the studio for 2 hours just working on one verse, just fine tuning that verse, and that blew me away because I didn't know that's how music was made. So is it safe to say that you wear a lot of hats with your band or your business?
Yeah, I mean, you know, and you kind of have to nowadays. It's just like one of those things where you know, there's so many resources available to everyone, like at everybody's fingertips, like on your cell phone or on a computer. It's opened up the gates to be able to share your art everywhere and push yourself. So it's put a lot more responsibility on the artist now. Like as you're a growing artist, I think you kind of have to have all that stuff on lock to kind of get the attention of someone else that's going to help, you know, like kind of take your hand and pull you up to that next step up. So it is, you know, I do personally wear a lot of hats in the band and in the business, just to keep things going. And same thing like with the music festival. You know, it's once you reach a certain point in a company or in a project or a business, you know, you have to start delegating, I would say. But nowadays it has been made a lot easier to have so many resources at your fingertips that you almost have to wear a lot of the hats in the beginning of your growth. So you know, and that's just one thing I've found out, and it's fun because it's, you know, you go from feeling, when you go to learn, I don't know, something about marketing or something about, you know, music production, like you're saying, being in the studio and getting to witness how things are done, you feel really ignorant in the beginning. You're like, man, I feel like, man, what am I doing here? You know, I shouldn't be here. I don't know how to do this. And then you slowly learn and grow through that process, and it becomes empowering of like, wow, I learned how to do that. And oh, I'm capable of doing that. So it's very inspiring to go through the learning process of all these different job titles of being, you know, a full-time musician and having to, you know, stack up your marketing, your branding, and, you know,
it's 24/7.
Yeah, along with trying to pour, you know, your heart and your passion into the actual art side of it, you know.
Isn't that funny how that works?
It is. It is.
You're working 80% on the business, and then your craft kind of goes on the back burner.
It gets a little bit of the back burner time, but it also takes, like, you know, when you take away that, when you take away so much time that you could be using for the art, and you minimize it, well, it makes that time a little bit more special. So I find it like it's easier to like really get excited when it's time to go to the studio, or when it's time to sit down and write a storyboard for a music video. You know, these are the parts where you get to pour the creation into what you're doing. And like, since you only have short, you know, I don't know, we'll go out on the road for 6 weeks, you know, working and playing a bunch and have a string of shows, and then, you know, all that work, and then you get to come in for like 3 days to do a studio session. Well, that's like 6 weeks of nonstop, lots of work.
That's a lot.
And then you go in for this like really special creative period. Well, it's only 3 days versus the 6 weeks. So you really have to get, you know, put yourself in the moment, and don't take those moments for granted, and be ready to pour, you know, that passion and all that love into the creation of your art.
So with you being so busy, how do you find yourself finding motivation or inspiration to write music? Or is writing something that you use as an outlet, and then you just kind of turn it into music, or how does that work?
You know, like my writing process has always been really interesting. I can sit down and write a concept song, or I can, I guess, just sit down and write if I try to. But a lot of times I'm just like writing in the flow, like at a show, or just like playing something that I really like the sound of, and I just kind of freestyle and kind of pour out maybe whatever's in my brain, or, you know, weighing on me at the time, or something I'm feeling inspired about. So it's like one of those things, like the inspiration comes just kind of out of a feeling that is so out of the blue for me. Now, I have sat down and I have wrote songs. I have sat down with other people and taken an idea and saying, hey, like, let's break this apart and write a song. And sometimes I feel like that's where my work really excels, is once I get with other people or I sit down and actually focus. But I've also wrote just slews of songs just on the cusp. Like, we'll just be out at a live show and say, hey guys, we're gonna make one up, here's the 3 chords, and I just kind of start freestyling, and out of that freestyle comes like a hook that is just like, oh, that was cool, and then you just kind of build off that. And so it's been really awesome to be able to have that creativity, and it really keeps me from ever having writer's block, I guess. I don't really run into that a lot, knock on wood, hope I never do or anything, but it's just something I've always just been able to kind of like spill out stuff that's in my head. And
talk to me, because we've talked a little bit about your music is very band focused. So guitarist, bass player, drummer, a keyboardist.
Yeah, I mean, we play with a key player. Here
key
and there.
Player, is that the
proper keyboard player, piano,
okay, I said keyboardist.
Whatever. Yeah, whatever.
I don't know what I'm talking about.
Whatever, they all know what it is. They all
piano.
Know what it is. Yeah.
So, how do you? Because that's a challenge within itself. Because you made me think. You made me think a lot, and I remember the first thing I asked myself when I listened to your music was, how is it that this guy hasn't blown up yet? Has finding a consistency in band members been the bigger challenge versus getting your music out? Does it kind of stumble things, or how do you work around that? Because I started noticing that it happens with a lot of bands where they're in the process of making music, and they have a consistency with their band members and stuff like that, and then all of a sudden it comes to a halt because they have to find a new bass player or something like that. Do you find yourself in that particular situation a lot?
Yeah, I kind of have over the last couple, probably 5 years, 4 years, 5 years. It's kind of like one of those things I was always wondered, like, why I guess it kept happening, but then I kind of started noticing, like, a lot of people kind of change band members, and there's actually like a lot of bigger bands that they don't have the same people there all the time. There's people
Correct.
who are filling in and stuff, and sometimes you just don't notice that because of that's where I guess brand comes big. Like, I guess what would be a good example? I mean, like Coldplay, you wouldn't go see Coldplay without knowing like Chris Martin was singing, right? But and everybody kind of can relate, like Chris Martin's the singer of Coldplay, but can you name any of the other 4 members?
Nope.
And not to say that all of them haven't always played, but like that's kind of the deal, is like your branding. And
Foo Fighters, what's the name of the lead singer from the Foo Fighters?
Dave Grohl.
Yeah, he's the only one I recognize from the band.
Right. And see, I know Taylor Hawkins, the drummer, just because he's like one of the most epic drummers. He's
awesome.
a monster. But it's just like one of those things that is something I've found. And for me, I've always wondered. For a while, we played when we started the band with basically. It was me and a drummer kind of who picked up. I wrote these songs. I asked this guy to come play with me. We started playing open mics, eventually started playing gigs. We got to where we wanted to record an album, and that's where we met our guitar player and our bass player at the time. We all recorded the album, then started playing shows together, and it felt like it was going so well. We were growing, and I just got really obsessed with like pushing the growth of the band, and it kind of got to a point, I guess, where we were all kind of hitting the age where it's like, mid to
adult life.
Yeah, mid-20s, and you're kind of like, what's going on? Where's my career? Like, is this band going to be stable? Blah, blah, blah. And at that time, we got to go to Nashville and record. And when that happened, they were kind of like, you guys touring full-time? And we were like, no, we don't even tour. They're like, you should be touring, And these people in Nashville were like inviting people into our session to just show us off in a way. And I was just so blown away because we'd never had any kind of like, I guess, validation like that. And
I guess my question is how, because you're still working, you're still producing things. So what do you do to keep it going? Because if you have people coming in and out of the band, like how does Fred go about just keep going? Like, not letting that, hinder you in any way, because I still see you're busier than ever, in my opinion.
Well, it's been like a learning process. Like I said, this all happened like in 2016. We go to Nashville, we go to record, and shortly after that, like the band kind of dispersed because two of the guys like wanted to focus on their careers versus going full time. And when that all happened, like we just kind of started going through a string of playing with different people. And I remember just telling Derek like how frustrating it was to go from being so tight and like well known with a group of people to having to like play with people that don't quite know the music. And it's not like they're doing a bad job or it's anyone's fault that it doesn't sound as good as it used to.
You guys
it's just a new learning process. Right. And so we just kind of went through a couple people playing, and like unfortunately, like we were using people who were in other bands, but it's also like fortunately that they were even willing to play with us, because it kept the show going, like you said. And it made me into like twice the player, because I had to learn to adapt. And like we would play with someone who's very like rock driven, and it'd be like a rock show, and then we play with someone who's maybe a little bit more jazzy and like jammy, so it'd be like add that flavor to the music. Then you play with someone who maybe plays with like a couple R&B bands, and so like just getting a lot of different like style off the music, and it was like a learning process, and it made me grow as an artist. And so
as an artist,
rather than taking it as like, man, this sucks, this is not like the way I want it to sound, it was more like, this is frustrating at times, but hey dude, like you learned how to play to a different person, and eventually it helped me be able to play and intermingle with other people on the fly a lot better, which made this so much easier to keep the show going.
Your shows are probably you're probably able to adapt to each show easier now. It's not only made you a better artist, it's made you a better entertainer. Yeah. And that's gold in my opinion.
And that's something like I've had to work on a lot, is like the entertainment side of it. Is like for a while I was very discouraged by like if we had to play with somebody new and we're getting up there and it doesn't sound good, and it's not like almost doesn't sound right, you're having to like struggle through the set, and sometimes it's very tough. And there were times where I just let it like kind of the emotion show, where it's like a true performer like puts on a show and doesn't let the moment drag them down. And that's something I had to really overcome, and like was just really embarrassed about all the time. I'd be upset after a show, or maybe like show some emotion on stage, and it's just like at the time you're just feeling heated about it, but then like 20 minutes after the show you're like, I'm an asshole, like why am I acting like this? Like everybody, it's not like the music sounds bad, it's just like you get on that perfectionist side of things, and you're like searching for perfection when music has nothing to do with perfection, and it's a lot of vibes and good energy that makes the show the best. And that's like something I had to learn through with playing with a rotating cast. And like I said, I could never be more grateful for the people I've gotten to play with, because they have kept the show alive. I have always dreamed of finding or being able to somewhere sustain that original 4 people that we played with, and like dreaming about where we would be now, like 8 years later, like with the success I've still been able to build by myself with using a rotating cast. I always wondered like what would have happened if we could have kept the same 4 guys together. They're always like, if I find the right 4 guys, it's just gonna click. And I keep maybe thinking that's maybe the answer to a solution of this, but really it's just been this process I've went through of playing with different people all the time, and not having the same 4 people has just made me grow.
So talk to me about the Shakedown Festival. I wasn't able to go to the first one, but I remember sending Chris, the videographer, and looking over the footage, and it looked awesome. It looked really fun. Talk to me about that. How did that come about? What is it? When do you guys do it? And how many bands play usually?
So we started it back in 2014, I believe, is the first year we did it. And it was just like, it kind of started as like my friend, his mom had passed away, and like it was Halloween time, and everybody was kind of upset about it. And they're like, instead of us all going out, why don't we have a party? You want your band to play. And at the time, Late Night Special was like very, very early. We weren't doing a ton, weren't gigging a lot, but we were like, and we just played our first show at the House of Blues in like Myrtle Beach, and we'd met this band called C2 and the Brothers Reed, and we were like, hey, instead of just us playing, like, can we get us and maybe another band all to play, and we'll make this thing like a field party? Well, we do it, and it like ends up being like 250 people show
That's
up, and it was just
crazy,
like
dude.
really
Oh
fun,
my
and we were like,
God.
this is cool. And so we were like, hey, let's try to like do this again. And we started doing like a biannual festival, like one in the spring and one in the fall, and decided to call it Shakedown, and kind of just ran with it and did different themes like Summer Shakedown or Halloween Shakedown. Like it kind of just ran with this music festival, and it went from being like, 3 bands at that original one to like, I think we got up to like 8 bands, and then we went to a 2-day festival where it was like 2 days. And in 2017, the owner of the property we were doing at kind of had decided like it kind of outgrown itself. It had grown from like 250 people to about 1,200 people coming through, and it was just like the property couldn't really sustain it. And to take the insurance and everything up to the next level to cover the whole event, it was going to take like a major investment. And at the time, I was not in the place to do that, and neither the owner of the property didn't want to do it. So we like took a hiatus and like took 2 years off. And then the one that we got you to like kind of video recap, that first one back in 2020, is kind of when we brought it back. So about 2.5 years later, we brought it back, and just ended up bringing in a really cool band called Susto. I think there was like 7 bands on the lineup, and that was our first one back in 2020. And then, we plan to do one this year around Halloween again. And it's just been a music festival that I kind of like built from the ground up from that little idea, and had a lot of great like local people around town play it, lots of local bands, and be in support of it and promote it very well and get people out. And it's kind of been like something that has really helped establish our band, Late Night Special. It's something that I kind of built and hosted by the band.
That's kind of crazy.
It kind of helped bring attention to our band, and everybody's like, well, what's this Shakedown thing, or like, who's these Late Night Special guys? And it kind of helped us like, I guess, birth our way into the scene a little bit. And I just kind of ran with it. I felt like it was a great opportunity to give more local bands like a bigger experience, especially like for us. It's like, we're not well known, we're just getting started out, like, we aren't going to get any festival opportunities, so let's just make our own festival. And that's what we did, and started giving other bands an opportunity to play on a bigger stage. And we brought it back, in 2020. We changed locations to a place called Green Life Family Farms, which is really awesome.
Is that the place where?
Yeah, that's where we went and did it. And it's just a really awesome like local farm. A good buddy of mine, Dustin Foster,
so cool.
He's running it, and it's a CBD farm as well.
Hell
and
yeah.
so it's just a great vibe out there, and it's been a really awesome, experience to change venues and it be such a great change. Sometimes when you switch up the location on things, sometimes it takes a little bit getting used to, but they made it an easy transition on us, and they did such a great job with the property. It made our 2020 festival just go over really, really well.
So being that this is your full-time job, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So being that this is what you pay bills with, when you reach the point to where stress, anxiety, all that stuff starts to play in, whether it be for whatever reason, you being an artist and also a business owner, because they're very different.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to be both. How do you deal with that as a person?
Yeah, man, it's tough. I don't know what it is about like anxiety, depression, stress, but it really just comes on thick and heavy the older you get,
When it comes, it comes.
Yeah. And exactly. And like it's like one of those things. I feel like, I don't know, man, the outside perception of the world is what's tricking you into like getting so stressed and so anxiety driven on yourself, and like getting caught up in your thoughts. It's like the expectations of society. And for me, it's like really, it's so easy to get caught up seeing your favorite bands, what they're doing, and being like, man, when can I do this, or why can't I do this, or like, is it ever going to happen for me? And you start to get stressed about the process and the to-do list and the mountain you still have to climb at the position you're at. But like in reality, like it has nothing to do with anyone else and what they're doing. It just takes the focus on what you're doing. And a lot of times I find that's where my like stress and anxiety comes from, is like wishing I was doing bigger and better things, but then having to like, step back and be like, dude, like, who are you, bro? You've only played music for 10 years, man, and like you got all this hard work left to do. Like you still, you know, you haven't earned that right to do that yet. And being like having respect for the people who are out there and they have been doing it for so long. Because a big misconception is like when you finally find a band that's like coming onto the scene, you just think they're a new band, right? You're like, oh, look at this new band. You know, this song just came out. But it's like this band's probably been playing for years. It's very rare that bands don't play for a long time and then all of a sudden come out.
You literally just described like what social media is like, because that's what plays a big factor in what people's perception is on things. You know, social media just shows you the highlights.
Right.
It doesn't show you what time you wake up at 4 or 5 in the morning, what time you go to sleep, if you get any sleep.
Yeah.
And that you're not working 7-8 hour days. You're working 12 to 15 hour days.
Yeah.
Sometimes 7 days a week. You go ahead?
No, that's what it is. It's like society has tricked us into just showing most of the good things that we do,
right, and
the rewards versus like actually explaining, you know. And I hear it a lot. I am literally living the dream, but is it like the Disney dream that has been played out for our lives, the happy ending fairy tale that just goes perfectly and the climax hits at the right time? No,
it's not like that.
It's not like that. And we've been tricked that life is that. And I think like, again, very rarely do you just get handed something of great value and you respect it if you did not work for it, you know. And so like having to work really hard to get somewhere, I think makes you appreciate it. It makes you less susceptible to like, I don't know, self-sabotaging it in a way, you know. Like it's truly like the trick and code to like hard work is like what really makes things worth the success that they are, or worth the value that they are. So just kind of getting out of that mindset of like the standard of like this is what you have to do to be validated, or like this is what you need, or you know, this is the algorithm's way of saying like you'll be rewarded, you know, like that is kind of tough, man. It puts you in a weird vulnerable position, because like what if you don't get rewarded by doing the same things that other people are doing? Like then you like now you've tricked yourself into maybe you're not good enough for it, you know. That right there, and that's what a lot of people are getting caught up in, you know. That's the key. What you said. I don't remember who I was speaking to regarding this, but it was like I get offended when people say you're lucky you get to do whatever it is you do. I'm like, luck has nothing to do with it. It's consistent hard work, and it's work, dude. I haven't worked this hard in my entire life. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And that's why I get offended. I'm like, dude, you have no idea what it takes to run your own business. You know, forget all the fucking photography and videography shit. Just running your own business, whether if it's a band or a paper business, hashtag The Office, or just anything. I don't care. Owning a restaurant. It's next level, man.
It takes a special kind of a person, and sometimes those key points that you said, where I'm working just as hard as they are, and they got this, but I don't. Those things are what makes me think that maybe I'm not that special of a person, right? And that's the fuckery. That's what fucks with a lot of people that have started and maybe they gave up, or people that are still doing it and have those troubles. And that's one of the biggest struggles for me. Yeah, is I see a lot of successful individuals in my industry, and I started doing something that I didn't do when I started, was comparing myself to them. And that's when you start going down that rabbit hole. Yeah.
And it's literally going down. You're not going up in the rabbit hole. You're going down by doing that. And it's tough. Me and Kyle were talking about this the other day, of how like there's this like weird line of like being able to say, you know, I am special, but so are you, Sam. So is Kevin. So is everyone that you've had on the show. So is everyone in a mile radius right here. Mm-hmm. Everybody's special. Right. But it takes like a special mentality to step out and put in the hard work to like really accentuate your talents and everything. Like it still takes like that special feeling to get motivated. Like everyone has pretty much the same chance to get out there and
absolutely
and do it, but it's like who are going to be the people to do it. So it's that fine line of being able to glorify yourself and like build yourself up and have the confidence of like, you know, I am special, but I'm no more special than anyone else, you know. And like I have to work really hard to make sure, you know, I, you know, just you know, utilize whatever you're wanting to get out there, you know, like you said, whether it's your business or whether it's your art, you know.
There's a quote, this goes something like, you know, if you run out of motivation and inspiration, your discipline has to carry the rest of it for you. And it's just been these last 4.5 years, because this is my very first business. I come from working 9-to-5 jobs, you know, depressing ass cubicle jobs, data entry and stuff. I did security work. You know, I bounced at the nightclubs for about 5 years. That was toxic in itself. You're literally the eyes and ears of those venues, and you know, people, they're intoxicated, they're with all kinds of shit, and it made me a very aggressive person, because you have to be. Those people don't respect you. So just all those things combined, and then you're working 3 jobs and you still have barely enough to cover the bills. It fucks with you. So that's where I come from. Me thinking owning my own business was going to be the easier route. No, it's literally the hardest thing I've ever done.
Yeah, it's harder, but it maybe
but it's way more rewarding.
Right, it's more rewarding. Like you said, I mean, I worked in the bar too, did the same thing, security, bar backing, and like my dad said something to me years ago, like I don't know who he was talking to, or he was like, pretty much like if you work a job for 20 plus years, after 20 years it really starts killing you. And I think maybe it's even less than that. I think after you work any job for a certain amount of time, you start to see the bad things of it, and there are parts of those bad things that can kill you.
Yeah.
But that's, like you said, that's where your discipline comes in.
Yeah.
If you have discipline to get through things, you know, it makes it easier. And it's tough to discipline yourself like working for someone else. I will say that. I never had the quality, and I really haven't, other than working in the bar. I have worked for myself for the last 10 years. I did hair for a while. I owned a food truck, and now done the band business. So I've like really worked for myself for a long time.
Interesting. Can we talk about that real quick?
Sure.
Before we close out. I remember you telling me your come up, where you came from.
Yeah.
Do you mind telling your story?
Nah. Basically, man, when I graduated high school, I like wanted to go play football, and just decided for some reason to like just take a year off and not do anything. And then after coming back for a year, I was going to go back and play football.
You played football?
Yeah, I played football in high school.
What would you play?
I played DN, so it like wasn't really ideal for me to go to college. I'm 6 foot. I think I weighed like 220 at the time. I just wasn't the ideal defensive end, but I was really good in high school, just because it's a different league than going to college and the NFL, obviously. But just had decided like, hey, maybe this isn't for me. I'd talked to like one of my cousins who played, and he was kind of like scouted by a couple NFL teams, and just he was like, man, you know, if you really want to go pursue this as a career, go get it, man. Like, I encourage you. But he's like, honestly, if you're just looking to go to college, like, be careful, because you'll just like beat the hell out of yourself and wear yourself down and getting.
Now they're doing all that. A lot of CTE research from football.
That's another thing. Like, I even ponder if I would, when I have a kid, if I would let my kid play now because of things like that. So anyway, skip out of that. Don't end up going to college. Like, hey, my dad's a second generation hairdresser. He was a hairdresser for 30 years, and his dad was too. And so I was like, I'll just go to cosmetology school, get my cosmetology license, and work in the salon with dad. So I did that for like 2 years. While I was like kind of doing that, building business, I'd met this guy who's like running a food truck, and I'd worked with him a little bit and started realizing like, man, this dude's making so much money. So like ended up buying like this hot dog cart and got it going with a buddy of mine. We called it Fred and Brock's Franks and Brats. And we'd go out to music venues. Awesome. We'd sell stuff everywhere and like kind of just got the hang of it, and then got into like this corporate park thing where you go to like a corporate park and sell lunches, and that's when it like took off and we started really making good money, and I was like, this is a good business. So did that for almost 5 years, and in the transition of that, I got out of hair because I was like, this hair thing ain't for me. Music was really just starting because I learned to play guitar at 21. That's when I had picked up the guitar.
How old are you now?
30. I'll be 32 in April.
Okay.
And it's just kind of crazy because like it just kind of took off, and like as I started to learn to play guitar, I always had just thought I would be like some rhythm guitar player in my buddy's band, and because he was like, my buddy Dylan Burleson was like really good at guitar, and like him and his brother played and they sang, and I was always so inspired. I was like, man, if I could just be good enough when he makes it, I can play rhythm in this dude's band. And next thing you know, I'm writing songs, meet up with my high school teammate Bradley, which was the drummer. We go out and do some open mics, and it kind of just accelerated there. Well, we got to the point where like I got asked to go out on a solo run to Myrtle Beach. This guy's like, hey, your band played down here, you can come play anytime you want, you guys are great, but can you do solo shows? And I just lied. I was like, yeah, I'll do it. So I go down for a weekend, make about
true hustler right there.
yeah, make about $1,000, and I'm like, all right, dude, I'm out of this
awesome.
hot dog business. And the hot dog business had gotten rough, you know, because it was like we would go out and play these open mics or shows and be out till 2 a.m, have to get back up at 7 to get the hot dog carts and all the food prep ready.
Just the prep
yeah.
alone.
Oh, it was chaos, but it was good money. So I was like willing to do it, and I was young, so I'm just working, burning the candle at both ends. Mm-hmm. And I eventually decided, like, man, after that run solo, I was like, dude, I should do music full time. And I ended up, like, within 6 months, had sold the hot dog cart to someone else. And
that's crazy.
Just kind of, like, took off in that direction of, like, let's do this music thing. And that's the hard balance that I found, is that I have made a small fortune playing music, like, which is crazy. But for myself, I have. And, like, it's easy for me to go out as a singer, guitarist, and play almost every day, 7 days a week. What I found really hard is trying to, when we talked about the rotating cast of band members, I think a lot of that has to do with job security. If I could offer a band a full year of shows, whatever it be, 3 to 4 shows a week where they could pay their bills, I'm sure people would be on board instantly. If you gave them that today and you said, hey, February of 2023, we're going to be on tour all year. You're going to be busy.
Living the dream. It's not even about the money at that point. It's like,
it's not, but it is. You got to think. Some people have, we all have like families and responsibilities, and money has became a thing. Obviously. And artists don't make that much money, and that's the problem. Like I was saying, I've made really good money by myself because I get out and I hustle and I gig, but like to supply enough gigs for the band, that is the hardest. That's the hard part. Because, like, again, you've said, like, my music's very band-based. So I really want to be out there with the band all the time. I mean, I love playing solo shows, and, like, I've learned to just, like, really work that side of this. But I also know, like, after we went out on tour these last couple years and played bigger shows, like playing in front of a couple thousand people with a band and people rocking and rolling, getting into it, is so much different from playing in a brewery or restaurant where 200 people are just talking while you're playing. And so it's really, really been a struggle for me to like find that balance of like, I do want to play in a full band, but I can't just ask these guys to come out and play for $50 to $100 a night. I want to supply something that like they're making a lot of money too, because I don't really make that much money when I play with the band, because I pay out the staff, I have to, or whoever's playing that night, and then we have to pay for gas and hotel rooms, like most of the time wherever you're going. If it's an in-town show, that's a different thing, but nobody ever thinks about it. But like, just because we play music doesn't mean we don't get taxed. So go ahead and take your X percentage out of whatever. Every gig
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, every gig has to, you take money out to put back for taxes because, you're taking care of your own expenses, all this stuff. So I don't really make that much money when I play with my band. So I know the guys aren't even really making that much money either, and that troubles me. I'm like, because I want to be playing full-time with the band. I just need to figure out how to like help them be able to play full-time too. Like I said, I can go out by myself. I could not play with the band all year, and I could go out and make a lot of money. But I do want to play with the band, and I want them to go out and make money and feel passionate about what they're doing too. So that's like been like the biggest struggle of like that rotating cast, because I think that's why it rotates, is because like each person that we play with, you have to take the best opportunity you can. And so when somebody gets a good opportunity, they lock it in, whether it be for financial reason or like, exposure, whatever, they lock it in. And so let's say you get that opportunity with somebody else, and then I get an opportunity a week later and I ask you and you're not available, so it's then like, am I going to turn down my good opportunity just because you can't play?
Absolutely
no,
not.
Let me find somebody else. So that's where that rotating cast comes from. And I say it all the time. I'm extremely blessed to have played with the people I've played with. And I have the highest respect for everybody's musical ability and their talents, like just so phenomenal. What I crave is the chemistry of longevity with people.
Yeah.
What, not just in the musical sound of things, but
it's almost like a relationship.
Yeah, it is. It really is. It really is. And I'm a nourishing person in a relationship. I'm a giver. I'm like, I just want to take care of you and love you and give you my trust, man. I've always been that way, and it's kind of the demise of me. I'm a little too nice a lot.
Yeah.
And that's like one of those things where I'm like always just willing to give you everything, all my love, all my trust, and then a lot of times people just quite aren't there. I found it a lot of people like will just kind of tell you what you want to hear, and you're really just like, man, you're not gonna hurt my feelings. I got thick skin.
Yeah, I'd rather
be honest.
I'd rather you
be honest and be open.
Because at that point you're wasting my time.
Right.
And that's what's gonna offend me. People that waste my time.
But that's what the problem is like you get so caught up in like you're wasting my time and you get upset. But the reality of it is like they're only doing that out of respect for you and wanting to make you happy. They're really trying to like, it's not really like someone's doing that out of spite.
Their motive. They're
It's just like they're doing that to try to avoid any kind of negative confrontation.
I get it.
And so it's like part of it's like it's an innocence, but it's also like people just realize to just be more open and real about things and from the get-go. And not be worried about like, hey, if you tell me something that you think I'm not going to want to hear and you think that's going to ruin our chances of a relationship in the future, that's kind of over the top, man. Yeah. Like, what are you gonna, you're gonna have to say you're gonna go slap my mama and she's a whore for me to be like, yo, dude, we can't hang out anymore, like. But it's like, you're not. I just don't get offended that easily.
I get it.
I'm like, hey, be straight up with me. If that's our boundary, we have to stand. We have to ride that boundary, and that's going to make our relationship go longer and further.
So before we close out, what do you have planned now for the immediate future and the long term?
Lots of stuff. We got another big national tour coming up this year. We're going to be all over the country. It starts May 7th, I believe. I'll be in Spokane, Washington, literally on the other corner, man, getting it in.
I love Washington.
Dude, beautiful place.
Washington blew me away.
It's a beautiful place, man.
I mean, I'm not even talking about Seattle. I'm talking about everything else around
Seattle's cool. We're in Spokane, so we're on the other side, and we actually end up going over into Coeur d'Alene in Idaho. It's just like good vibes, good people out there.
I went to Wenatchee, Washington for a wedding. It's up in the mountains. On the other, like, it was like you got to go through the mountains, and then on the slope there's like hills and stuff, and it's like a big town like in the middle of the hills with the mountains behind it and stuff. I didn't know what to expect, man, but the people were friendly, the weather was just different.
Yeah,
it was nice.
The terrain is
much
different.
Is awesome. You see wildlife everywhere.
Snow-capped mountains, something like you don't really get to see a lot here.
Yeah, dude, but yeah, Washington was probably one of my favorite states.
It's a great state, yeah, man. So we got that coming up, man. That's the start of the tour, and it kind of goes for about 2 months. It takes a 2-month break through the summer, and then we kick it back up in the fall from like September to basically the end of October. And man, we got that coming up. We're going to try to get some new music out. We've got a lot of songs in the works that we're just trying to figure out where the right approach and like how to release them. Because again, we all grew up, the people we play with, in the album world where you wanted to hear a whole album, and it's just not quite
like
that way anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's tough for everybody to cope with, and we're just trying to figure out, how do you cohesively release this? Because really, when you think about concept albums, it's like you have heavy hitting songs, popular songs, then you have those B-side songs that like some people cherish and adore, and that's the cool part of an album. When you start putting out singles, you get kind of tied into this thing, well, like, is it a hit? Do most people like it? Rather than like, it's not about what most people like. Sometimes you got to put out the stuff that maybe the fewest people in the room liked,
but that's
and
what you liked.
You're very passionate about. So got a lot of new music coming out, man, and we're going to be doing a big festival here in May.
What's it called?
It's called Sonic Movement Music Festival.
Here in Charlotte?
It is here in Charlotte, right at the Music Factory at the Fountain Stage. Got Susto on that, the Vagabonds, some really big bands, a couple local artists, the Wormholes, Natalie Carr. I don't know if you caught on to Natalie Carr. Mm-hmm. She's like a young and up and coming artist here in Charlotte. She's a beast, man. Nice. She's super cool. But just going to be doing lots of good stuff. So we're trying to get Shakedown cranked back up for the fall, too. We're going to do something around Halloween, just kind of working out the details for that. It's been really crazy coming out of the COVID thing because it's like you had to triple check.
I feel like this Shakedown is going to be big.
It could be, man.
Well, I think I've noticed the venues that I've been working at, it's kind of like after the pandemic, everybody's just flooding out.
Everybody's ready to do it.
Everybody's ready to get out.
As soon as the chains are off, man, get back after it.
Where can people find you?
So you can find our music, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, everywhere. Tidal, all those streaming services. Late Night Special Band is what you're going to type in. You can also go to latenightspecial.net and basically find all our links on our website. Our schedule's up there. Our tour schedule's coming out in the next couple weeks for the rest of the year. And we're at Late Night Special Music on Instagram. Give us a follow. Check us out. And like I said, man, the biggest thing artist fans can do is like stream their music. It really costs nothing to you, especially if you're using a streaming service. Like, get out there, stream the music, go to live shows. The pandemic thing's closing, so get out there and see people play.
Nice. Yeah. Dude, thank you so much for coming.
Dude, I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for doing this, man. Like, you've done a great job.
I can talk to you for hours.
Oh yeah.
You can chop it up
revisit
for hours.
We'll revisit it. Episode part 2
I know,
next
right?
time.
Thank you everybody for listening. Thank you to Bokal Sushi for hosting the podcast, as always. One of the dopest venues in Charlotte, North Carolina. And big thanks to Fred for coming out, Late Night Special. Please check him out. If you're in Charlotte, North Carolina, he plays a lot of local shows. Very talented guy. Go follow him on social media for his schedule. And thanks a lot, dude.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. We'll see you.
Awesome, man.